3D printing has changed model railroading in a way that hasn't been seen since the implementation of DCC. In a previous video, I gave you a taste of how easy it has become to do this. Well, today we're going full bore, and we're using this new 3D printer to show you just how far 3D printing has come for model railroading. If you've been hesitant to jump into this new world, let me put you a little bit at ease.
This video is brought to you by Model Railroad Academy. Model Railroad Academy is your online resource for model railroad instructions, ideas, and information, with loads of tutorials and articles for model railroaders of every skill level. I've recently been going through their catalog and watching some of their older videos, including this one from Don Kassler in the M&K division of the B&O. It's been really cool to watch and see all the old techniques he used. Plus, you can find tutorials on everything from bench work to electronics to scenery, all sorts of things there. The first 1,000 people to sign up at the link in the description below will get a full year of premium membership to Model Railroad Academy for $1.49. Offer is valid for new members only. You're going to see me use 3 models in this video. I wanted to let you guys know that all 3 are going to be available for download in N-Scale in the free download section of my website. And if you're an HO scaler, all you have to do is scale them up by 184%.
Disclosure time, PioCreate did send me the Hallowed X1 printer to try out. No money exchanged hands, and they do not have a say in my final opinion, which is good because I love the printer now, but I nearly threw this one in the trash. And I'm going to save all that info for the end because this is a model railroading channel, not a 3D print channel. But I think this printer could do a lot of good for a lot of model railroaders out there. I'm going to be printing 3 basic types of details in this project: vehicles, building details, and other small details, plus a few other things. Now, my layout is fairly modern, and if you've ever tried to buy modern N-Scale vehicles in any meaningful amount, you know that they are either 1, non-existent, or 2, so expensive that you have to access a home equity line of credit. I'm not talking about 50s to 70s vehicles, I'm talking about modern ones. If you're a manufacturer, there's a big hole for this and not just an N-Scale. So I went to Hitem 3D and generated 3 different models to start: a Ford F-150, a Chevy Tahoe, and a Toyota Corolla. Hitem 3D let me use an image to generate the models, and I've done a video on that. I'll link it right up here. All of these models are based on 2010's versions of the cars. Some of them I did need to do some work on, and I can do this in Tinkercad or some other software like Blender, and even in the slicers that you use to prepare the prints themselves. Basically, you end up with some gaps in the models that you have to fix, and I usually do this by just putting a reshaped cube or cylinder that you can make in the middle of the model just so it can connect the dots inside. Once I have the model fixed, I need to scale it. This requires some simple math where I take the size of the actual cars and scale them down. Here are the ratios you need to multiply by. Now it is time to print. The best thing about this new printer is that it is the biggest print size I've ever used. So I'm not printing 1 or 2 models per plate, I'm printing a dozen or more per plate. This is where the X1's party trick is really obvious. Instead of putting the build plate down into the resin tank, this takes the resin tank and raises it up to the build plate. And I'll talk more about that at the end. I am printing plate after plate after plate. I probably printed over 100 models doing this video. Let's see what I have. I would have printed more, but I ran out of resin. I plan on not only over detailing, but printing entire structures. I'm working on a custom feed mill and adding detail structures to the OSB board planned. Basically, I'm going to be customizing my layout in a way I have never done before, and that's all thanks to this 3D printer. Now, let's talk about the printer, both good and bad. If you're just here to see what I printed, you can probably stop the video here, but let's continue. So the printer works really well and is pretty easy to use, but I want to talk about why I chose this printer to feature and the issue I had that almost made me throw it in the trash and how I got to where I actually love it. So this is a bit long-winded, so let's get to it. I get a lot of requests to review 3D printers, among a lot of other random things that have absolutely nothing to do with model railroading. This is how many 3D printer review requests I've had this year alone. Every one I have been asked to look at is basically a different flavor of the same printer, and it's like, eh. And I decided a long time ago that I'd only review printers that were sold as easy to use for model railroaders who want to devote the majority of their resources to model railroading. 3D printing is part of our hobby, not the whole thing. So when PioCreate, a spinoff of Creality, reached out, I initially just brushed it off as another 3D print request review. But then I looked at the printer and all the things it claimed that it was supposed to be beginner friendly, that it did not require leveling and was ready to go right out of the box, and that it had an optional, if I can say that right, optional automated resin pump that refills the vat, and it can tell you what PioCreate resin is loaded in it with an RFID tag, and it has a scale to tell you how much resin is left. You can use other resins too, you just won't have the pre-programmed resin settings loaded in. All of these things are amazing, and they're true. The build plate just slides in, and you can start printing. The resin lifts right up to the build plate, and this makes it more stable and accurate. I've had some really accurate prints on this that I wasn't able to get before. Plus, it has a great easy release feature on the plate. All of these hardware features work so well, not to mention it is a 16K resolution printer. So why did I almost throw this thing in the trash? Well, I was really frustrated, like really frustrated. But I was frustrated because of the software, specifically HalopBox, the proprietary software that comes with it. When I do these type of reviews, I have to make sure that these devices are as accessible as possible because we are not 3D printing hobbyists, we're model railroaders, as I said before. We just needed something that works. And initially, all of my prints were failing when sliced with HalopBox. I was getting really frustrated. So they offer you a 3-month trial of Chitubox that comes with the printer. So I decided to try that, and this worked, and I was able to start printing like crazy. What I eventually figured out is that the skate base generated by HalopBox in the slicing process and the support process was causing failures. Now, I normally use a skate base when I'm printing. That's like just a little extra base that you have on that attaches the whole model to the print base. But I turned it off to try, and I set the bottom connection to a cube shape and actually then warped it a little bit, made it 10 millimeters wide and a 0.5 millimeter thick. And this worked. And it's been working ever since. So if you have one of these printers, don't use the skate base in the slicing process. So my conclusion for this is that the hardware is very beginner friendly. This is about as plug and play as I have seen a resin 3D printer. The key lesson here is that for any company making 3D printers, that if you're making a beginner product, make sure your software is beginner friendly too. HalopBox has some issues. When I first loaded it, it defaulted to Chinese language. Clicking a menu option right here, by the way, will change that. Also, all of the resin types are listed in Chinese. So maybe work on that a little bit too. Look, it's a good printer, and it's actually my favorite resin printer now. Just fix the software because I don't want to have to pay $10 a month to use Chitubox Pro to use it. So I will be using this printer going forward. Its build volume is massive, so I can do some cool things I haven't been able to do before. And hopefully this is just a bit of growing pains and this software issue gets sorted out. Now I have linked it in the description below if you want to check it out. Thank you all so much for watching. Until next time, I'm Jimmy from the DIY and Digital. Stay safe, be kind, and happy railroading.